From Pod World headquarters, this is the Carolina Insider from Learfield.
We're back. Time for another edition of the Carolina Insider. Jones and Adam here with you. And what a show we had. Number one, Adam is under the weather. Adam, hello.
I can play. Put me in.
Yeah, listen to him.
I'm good.
Sounds like
Let's do it.
Adam sounds like a 95-year-old smoker right now. And, of course, no matter what Adam's health situation is, lest we forget, it's Friday.
It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend, partying, fun, looking forward to the weekend.
So, don't worry, Adam. I get sick too. I just keep going, and I'm going to carry the load on this podcast today because we have a little bit of a different show today. Adam, first of all, we didn't ask initially for people to send in stories of how they had watched the NCAA tournament. You may remember a couple of episodes ago, we had the double story time about the wedding on the Baylor game day and then the hotel arrangement for the marriage of the UCLA game, which sounds a lot worse than it really was. So I think on the heels of those two stories, people started sending us a lot of stories of how they watched the Duke game in particular or a particular game in this NCAA tournament. And we've just gotten so many of them that we thought we could do a whole episode just with people's stories. Now, Adam, here's the caveat. We got so many that we're not going to be able to read them all on this episode.
Or ever.
Right. I mean, we're going to do our best, and we've taken a lot of them, but not all of them. Now, if yours doesn't get read today, that doesn't mean we didn't like it. It just means that we've run out of time. And so we are going to do our best to incorporate these stories that we aren't able to get to today into the next couple of episodes.
At least.
But at some point we just had to tap out. There was too much.
And they're all good. I enjoyed reading all of them. You'll probably enjoy Jones reading them more than if I read them.
So, a couple of reminders before we get started.
Don't smoke.
We're brought to you, as always, by LS Tractor. Don't let your outside chores or projects cause you to miss any Tar Heel game action. Whether you need to mow it, till it, or move it, let LS Tractor help make short work of it with their current offer of a free loader with your purchase of a tractor. Visit lstractorusa.com to learn more. LS Tractor. Now you can do more for less. And, of course, all of our coverage of the NCAA tournament was brought to you by Cookout. Of the Final Four was brought to you by Cookout. Cookout makes a couple of appearances in these stories, in fact. Fresh burgers, barbecue, hot dogs, milkshakes. Cookout joins us all in saying go Tar Heels. Adam, I don't have a Cookout shake in front of me, but I do have 4 separate drinks in front of me. I have my big Tar Heel travel daily cup of water. I have 2 bottles of water, and I have a Diet Coke. Let's just go ahead and get this bad boy open here.
Did all these come out of the storehouse that you keep here?
Yeah. Well, I went and saved the planet a little bit with this one and filled it up.
Yep.
And then just took 2 bottles of water and a Diet Coke from the reserve. I figured if there was ever a time that I needed to be hydrated up, it was today.
You might need a liquid IV.
Yeah, we'll get you the IV of medicine and me the IV just straight saline, and so I can hydrate.
I don't feel as bad as I sound, but as I hear myself with the headphones on, I got to tell you, I don't sound good. So I feel your pain wherever you're listening right now.
What if we just had you read all these stories sounding like you do, and people just like turned it off. They're like, after about 2 minutes, like, we cannot take this anymore.
It would all sound like a creepy grandma on the porch, like, and then I went to the Superdome. Come a little closer so I can see you.
Whew. Then I ran into Dominique Wilkins, and he signed my Funko Pop.
There was no other choice but to take off my shirt, my children.
Oh, we're off to a hot start. Okay, couple things. We are not reading every single word of every single story. So we have gone through to try to, we wanted to make sure everyone stayed true to their story, but sometimes we had to use some editing licensing as well. So if you don't like what got taken out, it was Adam. So just know that you will be berating an old sick man if you don't like what got taken out.
Put your head a little closer to the oven, my child.
And secondly, we can't run Mr. Goosehonker. We'd be running Mr. Goosehonkers for 2 straight hours or something. So just know Mr. Goosehonkers is here, and he's just nodding approvingly at all these stories. But that he just – so maybe we'll do this. Maybe I will run Mr. Goosehonkers one time through at the beginning of every person's story. But I won't carry him through every story for every person. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Storytime potty this year going to be a battle.
Oh, my gosh. I don't even know how we're going to get our arms around it.
Might need another sticky note.
That's a future Jones and Adam problem. Okay. Adam, you ready to do this? And by do this, I mean sit there while I read all these?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Whew. Our first story comes from our friend Mike. And Mike's story, titled, "Do You Like Cowboy Hats?" Parentheses, story time, not a bot. Starts like this. I drove from Dallas to New Orleans Friday morning. The easiest 7.5-hour drive I will ever make in my life. Walking into the lower bowl of the Superdome just as our East Region champions took the court in the cavernous stadium for open practice. B-Rob played tips with the coach's kids at center court. Brady Manic calmly sank jumpers, and Justin McCoy's effort to match Dontrez Styles' between the legs dunk flew what looked to be 1,000 feet straight into the air. Oh, it was everything he imagined it would be. And Adam, the weekend hadn't even started. As Mike headed back to the hotel to meet up with his brother, he got a tweet from a fellow Tar Heel Dave, saying that he wished he had the presence of mind to fly to Dallas, ride in, as opposed to just passing on all the extravagant flight costs to get from RDU to the Big Easy. Meanwhile, one of Dave's other Carolina friends, Aaron, wasn't concerned with getting to New Orleans, but Adam, he was more concerned with getting his cowboy hat there. You see, Adam, this wasn't just any cowboy hat. This was the cowboy hat. A Carolina blue cowboy hat that had been in St. Louis in 2005, in Detroit in 2009, and in Phoenix in 2017. But, side note, not in San Antonio in 2008 or Houston in 2016. This was indeed a magic Carolina cowboy hat. The end. And for the Tar Heels to have the necessary karma to take care of business, it needed to be in the Superdome for the Duke matchup Saturday night. So Dave played Tar Heel wingman, and I volunteered to be the medium in which it got there. However, here's a little hitch. Aaron is on the other side of the world. He's in Asia. He didn't physically have the hat anymore. His parents did. They were in Greensboro, and they weren't home. Well, this is a pickle. But
starting out with a mystery right at the top.
Yeah, that's right. If it wasn't for you meddling kids. But the biggest sporting event of all time calls for pulling out all the stops. In the interest of calling the spirits of the bayou, Aaron enlisted some help back home to obtain the magical cowboy hat and asked his friend John to pitch in. So John did what any rational person would do when needing to facilitate the transport of a magical Carolina blue cowboy hat to the Final Four. He broke into Aaron's parents' house to find the hat. Misdemeanors are a small charge when good versus evil is at stake. With the hat in hand, John rushed to the nearest parcel service. Parcel. I haven't heard that word in a while. The minutes ticking down on making the overnight cutoff, and made a Saturday delivery appointment to my hotel in New Orleans, putting the hat in my custody by noon the day of the game. I proudly opened the cardboard box and donned the Carolina cowboy hat, immediately overwhelmed by its aura. Even this proud Texan was intimidated by this incredible cowboy hat, but I vowed to not take it off until we left the Superdome that evening, either victorious, in an ambulance, or possibly both. We made our way to section 643. Our seats literally in the next to last row of the Superdome and over the Duke section of the lower level. A Kansas couple behind us thought the hat was a bit much, but they did appreciate my Kansas sticker, a holdover from that Fort Worth Saturday where I had belligerently just getting started, everybody, refused to cheer for Creighton in the back half of the Baylor doubleheader. I told my brother that they'd see us Monday as they left after the Jayhawks won the first semifinal game. My little brother, 5 inches taller than me, had a brilliant idea. Let's move up to the last row in the seats the KU fans had just vacated. Take advantage of the little extra space, the top row that was otherwise empty directly behind us. Adam, of course, Duke fans, being the, according to Mike, selfish souls who have no respect for the game of basketball, showed up. 10 folks in the wrong shade of blue came in 5 minutes before tip and took the extra space on either side of us that they were hoping to occupy.
Oh, boy.
Nevertheless, we defiantly decided to stay up at the top and stand for the entire game. We yelled, grimaced, screamed, even listened to the NBA guy next to us repeat, "All night long, Pablo," every time Banchero dribbled the ball. We cheered, watched through our fingers, hollered, cringed when the stadium staff proved Adam right and played Cascada, sending the Duke fans in front of us into their lame dance. We laughed hysterically and responded with sarcastic terror when the Duke fans erupted when they slapped the floor late in the game. We saw our lives flash before our eyes 24 times as the rivals traded monster buckets in the final minutes. Called upon the magic of the hat, casting the voodoo upon Mark Williams as he stepped to the free throw line in that final 60 seconds, the game hanging in the balance. 2 bricks later, we rubbed the brim of the Carolina blue hat atop my head, the heels needing a bucket like my 39-year-old lungs needed oxygen, especially considering I don't think I had taken a breath in the 15 minutes leading up. Then, Bedlam. Pandemonium, Caleb's iconic 3. And when he called for the team to follow him to the free throw line with 8 seconds to play, it started to sink in. Screaming hugs, tears, ecstatic disbelief, and waving goodbye to Coach K as well. I can't imagine heaven being any different than the rest of the evening/morning. The echoing chants of Tar Heels through the Superdome concourses, the smiles on the faces of the jubilant Carolina fans as we exited it out onto Poydras Street. By the way, Adam, I enjoy now that I feel like I know the streets of New Orleans like I do Omaha.
Yeah, sure, Poydras.
High five so hard that your hands hurt, singing Hark the Sound on the corner with strangers who are now your best friends, the drinks with the crew back at the hotel, the dudes singing Hey, Hey, Goodbye to Mike Krzyzewski on Canal Street at 2:30 in the morning. Adam, Mike would also like to let us know that he slept wearing that hat that night.
I often wonder what some of these stories would sound like if told from another perspective. I'd like to hear that one from the perspective of the parcel store employees, both in Greensboro and New Orleans, when a gentleman walks in Greensboro, probably got some mud on the knees of his jeans because he's been breaking into someone's house, and says he needs to urgently ship a large blue cowboy hat to New Orleans as fast as possible.
Okay. Our next story, Adam, comes from...
Only 37 to go.
Comes from a former potty nominee, Heather Justice. Heather's story, I can't remember what it was titled. Something about Brady Manic.
Untitled Brady Manic Project.
Heather's story starts like this. My best friend Lauren and I grew up in Chapel Hill. Both our fathers were professors, so obviously we loved the Tar Heels. After high school graduation, she went up north for college. I stayed in North Carolina. Shockingly, to me at least, that was more than 25 years ago. Although we have not lived in the same state since high school, we have remained close friends and take annual trips together. We often text during games, and this year was no different. The NCAA tournament started, and per usual, we were texting each other throughout the games. The Marquette game was awesome. The Baylor game happened. We lived and died with every play. Lost perhaps 15 years off our lives due to stress, but it was all worth it. After the Baylor game, we were jokingly saying that we should go to Philly to watch the Heels play in their next contest, but then real life started happening. My work and family obligations started weighing on me. I called her on Sunday afternoon to tell her that my heart says yes, but my head says no. But my body. However, Lauren knows me well, so well. After talking for maybe 10 minutes about what fun it would be, Adam, they decided to do it. They were going to book a flight to New York and then would drive down to Philly together because those ladies love a good road trip. The real difference maker in my decision to go was the promise of the fake Brady Manic beards that she would get so that we could wear them at the game. Obviously. I bought the plane ticket, headbands, Argyle socks, and Manic t-shirts. Lauren bought the beards, the hotel, and the game tickets.
That's normally the way you divide it up. You got the beards? All right, I got the Argyle socks.
I would leave, Heather would, early Friday morning. I wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 5:45 a.m., only to find my flight has been canceled, and they rebooked me on a flight to New York City that night. Well, obviously that would not work. So I did what any good Tar Heel would do, threw all my stuff in the car, and made a 7+ hour drive to Philadelphia. We reunited in the hotel lobby where we stared down UCLA fans and potentially got in some wedding photos. After a change into our Manic outfits, we grabbed an early dinner and beers while others stared curiously at us and then headed over to watch the games. Let me tell you, Adam, we were like celebrity in our Manic beards. We got lots of praise and fist bumps all around. Some UCLA fans even asked what the beards were all about. We simply replied, "You'll find out." That was like a Dr. Seuss entry right there. What's that all about? You'll find out. Well, we all know how the UCLA game went. I'd like to think our presence made a difference, even if just a little. The atmosphere was so much fun. It's rare to be in a stadium where everyone cares so much for basketball and their respective team. A wonderful memory for sure.
I gotta say, Heather sent pictures.
It's impressive. I was impressed by the pictures.
I was too. That's a very noteworthy representation of Brady Manic, of which I feel like he would be proud. I think maybe we should send those pictures to Brady Manic and show him what a difference he made.
Okay, Adam, this one's from Zach Mansfield. Zach, by the way, too cool for school. He sent this right to Adam. He's like, Jones didn't even want this.
2 fun facts about Zach.
What? I can't hear you, Adam. What?
2 fun facts about Zach. played on the 01 men's soccer national championship team for the Tar Heels.
Nice.
And his son was the one who did the All-ACC project last year.
I remember.
With Braden the Duke fan.
I remember.
I bet old Braden the Duke fan's a sourpuss these days.
Take that, Braden.
A year later, you got your comeuppance. I bet they voted for Armando Bacot for Player of the Year.
Well, yeah, they did the research. I like, by the way, now that Hubert Davis is winning all these National Coach of the Years, everybody's like, Jones was on that early. Yeah, that's right. I knew he was going to win National Coach of the Year. Just give it to me. Give all the praise to me. Really, I'm the one who did all the hard work. Okay, Zach's story. New Orleans 2022. Hark the sound. Starts like this. There was a risk. The weekend would be devastating. Can you imagine if we had been blown out by Duke? And yet deep down, there was a pull to put ourselves out there and believe that it was somehow all worth it. Maybe we were all converted by the radical Ted Lasso-esque optimism of our head man, Hubert Davis, or a burning desire to see our fiercest foe into retirement.
In the burning heart, just about to burst. I was made for that part of the show.
Yeah, right when we're finished that, I'm sending Adam to Siberia. He's going to go start working out.
Drago!
Shoshevsky! Or maybe after 2 years of COVID, we all just wanted to believe that the world could be normal again. But really, Adam, Zach thinks we just wanted to experience it together. That's the real takeaway for me of this entire experience. It's silly for sure to base one's happiness on a group of young men with exceptional athletic ability who sometimes shoot the ball through the hoop and other times shoot the same shots that just don't go in. We all know.
But enough about Paolo.
We all know this, and yet we are drawn to it. This weekend in the Superdome, we celebrated with these young men as they experienced the highest of highs and then ached with them as they saw their dreams vanish right in front of them. For Carolina, the dream ending to the season will end with a taste that there is something like 9 parts sweet, but 1 part bitter. These Warriors in light blue won't be able to hang another championship banner in the Smith Center. Yet, Adam, they won't soon be forgotten. The testimonies and memories from 2022 will live on long after casual observers remember the finer details of the championship game. And for me, the indelible image will be a still clip of my father's face from the video I was taking as the final seconds of the semifinal victory over Duke ticked off the clock. It happened to be my dad's 64th birthday on Saturday. Somehow the camera captured every bit of the joy and relief and the, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, and I got to witness it, that we all felt as he hugged my mom in euphoric delight. I'm still struck by the aftermath of that game. As the final buzzer sounded, there was a tidal wave of emotion from every corner of the UNC section that seemed to reverberate from the outer edges of the dome and crash back on top of each of us in emotive ecstasy. Quite simply, no one wanted the moment to end. So we stood there for the better part of a half hour, high-fiving, hugging, generally trying to get our collective heart rates back to normalcy. So this is what hope and a dream fulfilled feels like, right in the moment. Like a 100-foot wave of history and collective belief that the Carolina way is indeed the best way, or at least our best way, because we are all Tar Heels.
Hey, Zach, you and Aaron Matson and all your writerly qualities can just go sit in the corner because we don't need you trying to steal people's jobs. Can't you tell I'm on my last legs as it is? It's because of people like you trying to take my livelihood.
Zach reads your postgame columns, and he's like, I think I could send a couple of suggestions to Adam, make this a little more emotional.
What if you put in something about a wave?
All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit here in Zach's story. So we walked home, gutted. This is after the championship game. So we walked home, gutted, but not entirely. Hurting in the deepest way, but also thankful because it reminded us of how deep the well of emotions can go. Mostly, we were just thankful to have done it together. Even those of us who couldn't make the trip were there in spirit. A barrage of text messages on the group chain serving as the conduit for shared experience that extended well beyond the bayou. Those of us in New Orleans found a quiet spot to gather after the game, and since our boys in blue had brought us together, caught up on all the really important parts of life. We told the same stories we all knew from our time in Chapel Hill, shared new ones about the kids who have joined our respective families in the last decade plus. We stayed up entirely too late, probably did some hurricanes, just like we did as undergrads. Only this time it's because we knew that going to sleep meant waking up to a reality in which we would go our separate ways again. For a magical weekend, the old band was back together. A more grizzled version. That's Adam. That's what I feel like when we come into the pod every day. The old band's about more grizzled than we were yesterday. Listen, Adam's like Sam Elliott over there. For a magical weekend, the old band was back together. A more grizzled version, but one that was still able to play the same hits. I like that. Who knows when the next chance to gather will be? Is it possible to expect such a magical confluence of events to happen again? Logical minds would suspect no. But that brings us back to the beginning, to the place where this journey all started, the thrill of the unknown and the power of the hope to bring us all together. Adam, I have a question. So does Zach. How do you put a price tag on hope? You don't, because the answer is always the same. Worth it.
Carolina, priceless gem. I'm a tar, born in a tar. When I die, I'm a tar.
I hope this version of the pod never gets taken off of iTunes so that we can go back and hear Adam try to gut his way through this podcast.
We're recording this on Thursday. I gotta assume this is the worst day. I gotta assume.
Yeah, we had a confluence of events that had Adam unable to talk in this pod where we were each going to read some of these stories.
I tried to say that I would read the short ones, and Jones was like, "You can't even talk." And I was like, "I sound just fine." Then I dry heaved and everything was fine.
Oh, quick reminder that we're brought to you by UNC Health. And our good friends at UNC Health are dedicated to caring for champions of all kinds to help keep you in the game and at your very best.
What's their number again? UNC Health?
Yeah, you do. Adam, get this website. It's unchealthcare.org/sports. unchealthcare.org/sports. Adam?
What are your symptoms? I've been traveling with the Tar Heels for the last 31 days, and we haven't been home.
I tried to warn you not to be out there doing the hurricanes with the kids till 4 a.m.
All the pod listeners kept saying, come do some hurricanes. We're out here. We're looking for you.
Oh, hold on, Adam. I have made a mistake. I need to reopen our podcast account because our next story by Lisa Glover has some visual evidence that is still in the email that I need to have at my fingertips so I can truly tell this story that Lisa's going to send us here.
I can't wait for all the people on the audio podcast to see the visual evidence.
Well, I am going to explain some of the visual evidence.
You're going to paint a picture with your words.
Yeah. It's an important text message between Lisa and I believe it's her daughter, if I remember correctly, Sarah.
You and Zach are basically just word artists.
Yeah.
The rest of us are painting by number.
Okay. Our next story comes from Lisa Glover. Lisa's story starts like this. I had to take an unexpected trip to California Saturday to visit a family member and had to fly during game time. Agony, in all caps. The plane had TBS. That's good. Slightly delayed.
The channel, not like a disease.
Is there a disease called TBS?
I don't know. It sounded at first like the plane had TBS. Like, oh no, you're not going to be able to get away from the gate as long as you got TBS.
But I had to watch in silence because I forgot to bring headphones that I could plug in. I mean, you could have spent the $2, Lisa. Thankfully, that meant I was spared listening to the national broadcast. I could fill in with my imagination as to what Jones and Eric might be saying. Oh, Lisa, I'm sorry for that ugly comment a minute ago. The TV feed cut off just as Armando came back into the game after his injury, and the plane taxied to the gate. No, says Lisa. Several agonizing minutes of no video, but my 17-year-old started texting me updates to keep me sane. I want to hit pause and now go to my visual updates of the text message between Lisa and her daughter, which, by the way, is a group text message that is titled The Quarantine Squad. Lisa, landing now. May lose our game feed. Sarah, Leaky made 3. Brady 3. Lisa, rolling up to the gate. So far, we still have the game on our TVs. I'm going to read these as written. I do believe there were some spelling and grammatic mistakes here, but we all understand it was in the heat of the moment. Sarah, Baycott down, D-O-E-N. He's hurt. We are doomed. Lisa, ah! Sarah, Puffy free throws. 2 for 2/2 door Puffy. Baycott back in. Lisa, keep our updates coming. We've lost our TV feed. Sarah, up by 1. Duke by 1. Brady 3. Duke by 1. Lisa, watching at airport bar now. Okay, there's still more in the text chain to come, but let's go back to our story. This is Lisa again. We rushed out of the plane and into the closest bar in the terminal. Watched the last 2 minutes on a small TV with a few other hardy fans, even some Duke fans. Texting turned to gibberish as we got excited. Pause. Back to the text message, Adam. Sarah then sent a text message that says, HDHSJZJZBZNXNZNSKAMA.
Right.
Next text message. SCNEMWSI. Send. Another text message. DZZJZBBXBXBXBXBX. Send. A new fan enters the chat, Grace, who says, yes. Lisa then sends party emojis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, and then a birthday cake emoji. Sarah
Grace has always been the most sensible of all of us.
Sarah then sends capital S, capital C, capital D, capital A, MINDIDOX. Send. Back to the story. I cheered enthusiastically with each Caleb Love bucket and free throw, and startled some in the airport with my shouts when the game was over and Coach K officially retired. I left the airport beaming in my Carolina colors. I was able to bond with several random strangers at the airport over our love for the Heels. On the way home Monday, wearing Carolina gear again, I met more Tar Heel fans, including an airport worker who proudly showed me a selfie that he took with James Worthy at the airport one time. He proclaimed James was a true gentleman and a great representation of North Carolina. Of course, I agree. After this amazing run...
Don't be so mean, James.
Don't be so mean, James. After this amazing run, the way the team handled the early deficit, injuries, blows to the head, the agonizing loss, we all know that the 2022 Heels are also amazing representatives of the Carolina way.
I mean, Grace was the sensible one, but I feel like Sarah was having more fun.
I mean, Sarah literally just had to hit letters and hit send multiple times.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one. She wanted to make sure you understood that this was a moment beyond words. Meanwhile, Grace is like, I am very excited right now.
The outcome of this game pleases me.
I dislike the coach of the opposing team and all his minions.
By the way, she mentioned Tar Heel Sports Network in that. 2 things about those play calls that I sent out the other day. One, Adam, I mean this. I don't have full recollection of Eric saying how you like them apples and me saying I freaking love them. Like, I honestly, when I heard that, I was like, whoa, I didn't even remember that happening.
You gave it a little fist pump then, too.
Did I?
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of all of it is Eric just cackling like an old man in the corner, where it's like the game's over. We've said what we're said. The band's playing, and you just hear Eric's like, ho, 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 ho. Big Eric is pleased. This makes me happy.
Enemy vanquished. Tar Heels celebrate. Kingdom happy.
Woo, I know we've said it before. Eric is like the most even-keeled guy in the world until it's Tar Heel Duke time, and then it gets a little different.
Well, and I thought Carolina Duke at Cameron Eric was about the most fired up I'd ever seen him. I didn't know about Final Four Carolina Duke Eric.
By the way, if you're wondering who that is clapping loudly in the background, that would be Adam. I mean, some of us will have a little more decorum on press row and only scream and fist pump at him. You can clap all you want if you think you're a pro.
Yep. I decided I'd probably only get to do that one time in my life, and I was going to do it right.
All right, Garrett Weiss. I just saw the title of the next one. It made me laugh. But Garrett Weiss's story. Another wedding story. The day my heart nearly stopped. That's the title of Garrett's story. And Garrett's story starts like this. I film and edit weddings as part of my income. Of course, many times, weddings and their assorted vendors and services are booked many months, even years in advance. I'm sure you can see what direction this is heading. I watched each and every second of each and every Tar Heel tournament game from the same spot, on my couch, at home, moving only briefly for bathroom breaks, water refills, or nervous pacing. He said, side note, despite my sedentary viewing of the Baylor game, my Apple Watch told me I had done 17 minutes of exercise during the second half and overtime. Imagine my consternation when I discovered I had a wedding booked for April 2nd, 2022 in Spartanburg, South Carolina, about an hour away from Garrett's home in Kings Mountain. Even worse, Garrett's contract stipulated he was obligated to stay there until at least 10:30, making a return trip to my go-where-you-go seat on the couch impossible if I wanted to see any of the game at all. So what is a man to do, Adam, asked Garrett. Should he cancel his services for the wedding? He thought about it, but of course not. That's unfair to put the happy couple in the lurch because I hadn't had the foresight to imagine such a consequential event taking place on the same day. Who would cancel something that they had scheduled for that day, Adam, just because Carolina and Duke are playing?
I can't imagine anyone doing that, but if they did, I bet they're happy they made that choice.
He turned to a fellow Tar Heel fan, Dante Evans, who had worked in Spartanburg for a time at Wofford, and he determined that his best bet, given the location of the wedding, was to leave immediately and head to a downtown walking distance Spartanburg bar and watch the game on a massive outdoor projector in their courtyard. Swallowing my nerves and focusing on doing the best job I could all day to distract myself from the monumental occurrence taking place in New Orleans. I'm hitting my stride right now. I'm reading these stories. I dutifully filmed ceremony, dancing, cake cutting, and the rest. Once able to take my leave, I bolted to my car in the parking lot, unloading all of my camera equipment, saying a quick prayer that no one break in and steal it. I bet that would be... Camera stuff's expensive.
Yeah, especially the good stuff like I bet Garrett uses. It's a high-quality production.
Garrett quickly swapped a more professional shirt and sports coat out for his trusty 2017 national.
See, I like that.
What?
That he changed clothes.
Yeah.
Like, he's taking this seriously.
Yeah, he put on his 2017 national championship T-shirt and sprinted down the street to the aforementioned bar. There was pandemonium as I entered the courtyard, just as Armando Bacot left the game with his injury. Oh no, thought Garrett. Had my inability to watch the game from the as-yet lucky spot on my couch somehow caused this? When the commercial break ended, they showed Armando being escorted to the locker room. Should I abandon my station and not watch the rest of the game for the good of the Heels? Of course, my curiosity would never allow that, says Garrett. He planted himself firmly as close as he could to the screen upon such late arrival, eyes glued, emotions running high. What awaited me was pure elation. The momentum swings, the big-time shots, the gutsy performance by Armando when he returned until he fouled out. I've never felt closer to so many strangers as when that final buzzer sounded. A sizable portion of the crowd broke out into cheers and screams. I shared many a hug with strangers in Carolina blue, even as we asked ourselves, did that really just happen? It was, as Adam said, what I imagine doing drugs must feel like. Adam, I got to tell you, that comment has resonated with a lot of people.
A lot of people right now going, maybe you should do some drugs right now.
Yeah, here's some Claritin. See if that helps.
Try antibiotics.
I returned to my car, relieved to see that my camera equipment were safely where I had left them. He decompressed, Garrett did, by calling his friend Dante, yelling back and forth for a bit in celebration. He then began his drive home, but went out of my way once back across that state line in North Carolina for a special victory treat. What better way to end this magical night than with a celebratory cookout tray? Of course, Garrett's drink of choice that night, Adam? A pod milkshake. Never has any cookout tasted as good as mine did that night.
I mean, that story's got it all. What else could you possibly have? Finishing it off with the cookout is really incredible.
Adam, our next story comes from Parker. It is titled, Lucky UNC Underwear.
Sure.
And Parker's story starts like this. Parker, before we get to the part where we're reading, actually mentions a couple other lucky jerseys that he has, but we're going to cut right to the chase. The final item of Parker's lucky clothing is his lucky underwear. When I was 11, my parents gave me these after the Heels won the 1993 national championship.
Side note, Parker 72.
You can see that I wore them until they literally started coming apart at the seams. Please note the rip in the most unfortunate location. However, they were so beloved that I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. So I kept them, much to my mother's dismay. Then when I got married after college, it was to my wife's dismay that we had to keep them. But I started wearing them for championship games only in 2005. The reason? One, because they are championship underwear, obviously. And two, because they likely wouldn't survive more than one wearing per year. Parker mentions that his wife asked him to include the fact that she has to wash them in a delicates bag when they're in the laundry. The only stain on their record is the 2016 final per Parker. But I prefer to think that it took a Herculean effort and a miraculous shot to overcome the powerful mojo of his Jordan jersey 93 underwear combination.
Parker, that's just a Tar Heel problem right there, because over in Raleigh, they got championship underwear that's pristine and never even been washed. Still in the wrapper. That's my championship underwear. I only wear it when they're in the championship.
Okay. All right. This story comes from Suzanne, Adam, titled The Day When Two Basketball States Became One. Suzanne's story starts like this. Suzanne was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. She grew up fanatically cheering for UK basketball with her dad. She learned at an early age that no social commitment should be made without first consulting the basketball schedule. Fast forward to when Suzanne went to Carolina. She was curious to see how attending UNC was going to work out from a basketball perspective. Fast forward to December 10th, 1990. She attended the Carolina-Kentucky game, Big Grits, Hubert Davis on that team, and confirmed that my allegiance was in transition, as she suspected. That was the Pete Chilcutt on the floor? Is that what happened?
King Rice was involved there somewhere.
Well, I need to hydrate for a second.
I'm curious, She just glossed over the fact, how did she end up going to Carolina?
I don't know. Yeah,
Big Kentucky fan from Kentucky, but didn't go to Kentucky.
Yeah, she doesn't say.
Hey, good choice though, Suzanne. I'm glad you made it.
March 28, 1992. She watched the UK Duke game in the East Region Final with my UNC classmates. Was concerned they would not be focused on the game, but was surprised that our mutual disdain for Duke unified us. Entire group ran outside after Sean Wood's shot, celebrating, only to return inside for the Christian Laettner shot. Observed equal devastation between myself and my UNC classmates. Duly noted. Side note, I recommend the I Hate Christian Laettner ESPN documentary if you like UK or UNC. Now, to present day, the 2020s. Both daughters at UNC. They've both become avid Carolina fans over the past 30 years. No questions about my basketball allegiance. That's her whole family. She's saying she and her family. November 2021, attended the exhibition game. Texted my UNC tailgate crew scouting reports that included insightful comments like, Brady Manic is a beast. Dontrez can leap. Since deleted texts could have been reused post-Baylor game. January 2022. She booked a flight to Louisville, Kentucky to visit my sister for her spring break. No thought of basketball implications at the time, breaking the cardinal rule above. February 2022. Chatting with my sister, and I mentioned that I will get to watch the Final Four games together like we did last year. And I say, maybe one of our teams will be there this year, thinking, of course, that it's her sister's favorite team, Kentucky. 1 minute after the St. Peter's game, she realizes it will be the Tar Heels that will be playing in the Final Four game as Suzanne gathers with her family in Kentucky. April 1st, 2022. She's in RDU, ready to take the flight in full UNC attire. Has several bonding conversations with fellow Carolina fans that are heading to New Orleans. While lacing up our UNC shoes together after the security checkpoint, a fellow fan looks me straight in the eyes and says, "We're going to win. We're going to win." Upon arrival in Kentucky, while still dressed in full UNC attire, I noticed a consistent pattern of smiles, nods, and thumbs up from the Kentucky fans. The anti-Duke unity is stronger than ever. April 2nd, 2022. Suzanne and her sister walk to visit her neighbor, who unfortunately is suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. She welcomes Suzanne does the distraction. I experience sudden dismay when we enter her house, and I see that she is watching the pregame coverage. Fortunately, she mutes the TV, but I still see the royal blue hoopla occurring out of the corner of her eye. After politely answering the same questions multiple times, she stares straight at the screen and says, "I hate that man." This is the neighbor with the early onset Alzheimer's, mind you, who says this. Suzanne turns to see Coach K being interviewed, and I say, "Well, tonight's going to be his last game, so you won't have to see him again." Her neighbor's, or her sister's neighbor, says with a twinkle in her eye, "I'm rooting for Carolina tonight." Suzanne feels comforted that the basketball portion of the brain is resilient. I watch the game with my family in Louisville. My sister starts the game wrapped in her UK blanket, but by the end of the game, she's jumping up and down, screaming, "I love Caleb." For one glorious day, my birth state and my home state have become one.
I tell you, Carolina and Kentucky got a complicated history together, but it's nice to know that something can bring them together. I don't know that would you have thought Kentucky fans would cheer for Carolina over Duke?
Yes. Okay. Kentucky fans hate Duke. They hate him.
They're still kind of mad about the whole Laettner thing.
They hate Duke.
He should have been thrown out of that game.
Well, that's the thing, is that he should have been thrown out of the game. He stepped on Sean Woods earlier in the game. That absolutely happened.
Much like he was removed from the Tar Heel team hotel in New Orleans. He did that voluntarily.
Yeah, a savvy move, honestly, by Christian Laettner.
Yeah, well, yeah, so if you missed it, one of his various companies that he promotes or something had booked him a room at a hotel that turned out to be the Carolina team hotel. And it wasn't going great. So by Friday, he went and said, "Guys, I'm gonna check out and go to a different hotel." I think that was the right call.
Okay. Okay. No interviews on this episode, of course, but Our interview is normally brought to you by our friends at Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina. Texting while driving takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. And at highway speeds, that's like driving the length of a football field with your eyes closed. Trusted Choice Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina want you to stay safe behind the wheel and encourage you to put down that phone while you're driving. Let's have a hands-free NC. To learn more and find an agent near you, you can visit trustedchoice.com. Adam, our next story is from Daniel Cook. It's a good one. I'm going to try and keep my emotions down as I read this one, Adam. It's going to be tough. Although you hacking and inevitably getting me sick for next week, I'm sure will keep me focused.
You've already been through this.
Daniel's story, titled Father and Son, starts like this. Like Adam, 1987 was my team. With J.R. Reed joining Kenny the Jet, Joe Wolf, Jeff Lebo, Dave Popson, I was hooked, says Daniel. I studied the newspaper for game times and TV coverage, discovered Woody on the radio, secretly listened to weeknight games when my parents thought I was doing homework or sleeping. Although my closest friends shared this passion with me, in my own home, it was a solitary endeavor. My parents weren't sports fans and didn't grow up with it. This was illustrated clearly after Ronnie Cycli broke our hearts in the regional final, and I ran to my room and cried for an hour. My parents were bewildered, and despite their best intentions, they were ill-equipped to console their despondent son. Fast forward to now. I live in New Jersey, happily married with 3 kids. Twice a week during my train commute from New Jersey to New York City, I listen to the pod, not only for the Carolina basketball fix, but for a connection to the state of North Carolina. There's no cookout in New Jersey. What up, cookout? So I pine for my burger with Cajun seasoning, fries, and shake, always a vanilla Oreo. I've successfully brainwashed my family such that every time we drive into or through the state of North Carolina, we detour as far as necessary to hit a cookout. I also got a lot of strange looks on the train due to laughing hysterically the day Jones regaled us with the story of his dog, since I could relate when my wife and I thought it would be a good idea to let our dog nibble on a corn on the cob. That's a good throwback there, Daniel.
Yeah, we know now that's a bad idea.
I tell you all of this to get to these past few weeks and ultimately Monday night. Just like when I was growing up, my passion for the Tar Heels was an individual rather than a family affair. My wife and kids indulge me, but don't really share it. Against Villanova, my wife was out late, came home in time to sit with me just in time to watch Chris Jenkins' dagger. Without any prompting from me, she assumed full responsibility and vowed never to watch in the same room with me again. She's fulfilled that promise with an enthusiastic, "Give 'em hell, Heels," as she leaves the room before every game. As a result, the next year against Gonzaga, I watched by myself. When the horn sounded, I ran around the house like Jim Valvano looking for someone to hug. But alas, Adam, they were all asleep. Okay, I've got to center myself to read these next 2 paragraphs. In a wonderful, if bizarre development, my son, who is now 13 years old, has developed a severe hatred for all things Duke and Coach K. When people ask him, a voracious reader, to name his favorite books, he responds with things like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Duke sucks. That's the book, by the way. He's not just making a statement. It makes for some awkward glances in my direction, but I always beam with pride. Nevertheless, his hatred of Duke never has transitioned into love for watching the Tar Heels with me. Like the rest of us, he did roll his eyes at Coach K's farewell tour and delighted in Carolina's win at Cameron. And when that happened, Adam, something changed. He was asking me when the next game was. Where were we seated? How does the bracket look for us? And finally, after the Sweet 16, when he saw the apocalyptic collision course on the horizon, he sat next to me, wire to wire, for the rest of the games to watch it play out. For the first time in more than 35 years of obsessive fandom, I shared it with family. Hooping and hollering and high-fiving, especially during that glorious game on Saturday. But even though he came to watch Kay be sent off the stage, as you would expect, he fell for Armando and Leaky and Caleb and Puff and stayed till the end. And when the horn sounded late Monday night, through all the despair, he looked at me and said, "Dad, next season, I'm all in." This team has given us so much to be proud of and optimistic for the future as the Roy era has ended and a new one begins. Just like Adam, I'll always have 87. And now because of this team, my son will always have 2022. And for that reason, above all others, so will I. I did a good job right there.
Oh, boy. That was a good one.
I did a good job right there.
Whew. Luckily, that was not.
I just powered right through it.
Luckily, that wasn't the first reading. On the first,
Yeah. Now, wasn't good the first reading.
on the first reading, things got a little ugly. But we've had time to adjust to it now.
I read it. When I read it for the first time, my wife and son were in there. My wife was bawling by the end of it. So look what you've done, Daniel.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. And, Adam, honestly, as we talked about on the last pod, I think part of what has made this team so impactful for Carolina fans.
Yeah. And there, it somehow becomes even more impactful when you don't win. Like, I actually think that adds a little layer of something to it.
Oh, man, this next one's intense. It's from Jeremy Carver.
We're really spanning all the things in life on this pod.
Yeah. Okay. Jeremy's story starts like this. My family of 5 lives here in Asheville. We booked a spring break trip for Aruba back in January. My wife, Lorraine, is class of 2000, said, "What about the Final Four?" My response at the time, "What a wonderful problem that would be." Well, fast forward to last Tuesday. We depart for Aruba from Charlotte. We're cruising along, but things got weird, Adam. One of the passengers began to have a seizure or some other type of medical emergency. Thankfully, a team of a surgeon, a couple of nurses, and a flight attendant work with this man. We have to make an emergency landing in Turks and Caicos. EMTs show up on the runway and rush him to the hospital. Finally, later on that evening, they arrive in Aruba. We get closer to Saturday in our crazy showdown with Duke. By the way, he says, watching the tournament overseas is a bit of a challenge. ESPN has the rights, but they were showing the Final Four on ESPN2, and where Jeremy was staying, they only had ESPN. So they began a journey of restaurant and bar hopping to try and find the game. We finally land at Playa Linda. That means Linda Beach, Adam. That had it on its big screen in the lobby. There were lots of Dukies around, but my family settles in. I needed my pacing space outside the room. He believes the game was tied when the game goes to commercial. Jeremy is out pacing and introduces himself to another guy watching the game on the outside. This other guy says, "A little bit stressful, no?" I said it sure was. I asked where he was from. The gentleman responds, "My name's Frank. I'm from Connecticut." So I mentioned that he should be excited for the following night, referencing the women's basketball. I proceeded to ask him all the questions, including when he arrived. And Adam, Frank was the guy that they had to make the emergency landing in Turks and Caicos on Jeremy's flight for. Jeremy gave him a big hug, said he was so happy to hear that he was okay, that he was alive and healthy, and helping him cheer on the heels. I looked at him and said, "There is no way the Tar Heels are losing this game now." It was such a surreal experience. What are the chances and the timing that it all turned out that way? Coincidentally, they rode the same flight home on the same row. I wished him and his girlfriend well on their connecting flight. It is a Final Four none of us will ever forget.
Now, good job, Frank, and I'm glad you're okay. But what I heard most importantly in there was, if ESPN has the rights overseas, does that mean I can stream the Tar Heel Sports Network if I'm not in the United States?
Whew. Okay. All right. Okay. This one's I got to remember, this one's intense. Okay. Shea Oaks. 3 cities and a funeral. Want to, again, Adam, remind you how happy I am that you aren't feeling great today. Shea's story starts like this. Shea would like to focus on the weekend the team was in Philadelphia. You see, this Sweet 16/Elite 8 weekend was the weekend picked for my dad, UNC class of 1952, for his funeral. Shea's dad passed away in December after battling cancer. Given COVID and school schedules, travel, and weather, we thought it would just be better to have a celebration of his life in March. Now, Shea got married 24 years ago this May. We had an extended agreement because the winter is cold. You don't get married in March if you're a basketball fan. As expressed above concerning our family history, March is not possible for a wedding. But as we consider the date for her dad's funeral, it just had to be an option. She says, as a side note, please realize we made these plans in January and February when, let's be honest, I'm not sure anybody thought the Tar Heels were going to the Final Four. One thing I did not anticipate was the Heels having a 9:39 tip the night before her dad's service. With our daughter having classes at UNC on Friday, she drove over to meet the rest of the family in Winston. And my husband drove to Atlanta so that we were checked in our room with about 30 minutes to spare before game time. So daughter goes from Carolina to Winston, family goes from Winston to Atlanta. They get in just in time to get the game.
Before the UCLA game.
We had guests arriving as early as 7:30 a.m. the next day, so sleep became a priority for my husband and our youngest daughter. It was up to me and my oldest daughter in our room, my mom in her hotel room, and my aunt in Washington, D.C., who had to rise at the crack of dawn to fly to the funeral the next day to cheer on the Tar Heels against UCLA. Our family of 4 turned off all the lights in the hotel room and positioned my oldest daughter and myself on the inside of the 2 beds next to the bedside table in the center. This was strategic, so we could whisper to each other, high fives, and hold hands. Holding hands with my sorority sister in 93 is how we won the title that year. Throughout the game, my daughter and I would make hand signals of UNC and cheer silently. We couldn't believe Adam is now trying to make those signals currently.
How do you do that with your hand?
At the end of the game, when I heard my husband grunt that he was semi-awake, I knew I could jump up and down and pound the pillows until my heart's content. The pounding made our younger daughter think the run was over and the Heels had lost. That rascal, I added that part, had been faking sleep all along. But in that moment of hearing the score and a whisper of glee, she exclaimed, "Wait, we won?" The next day, the service was magical. There were indeed Carolina blue skies as close family and friends gathered in the bridal room. Gentlemen were in Carolina blue ties, my husband donning one of Dad's by Alexander Julian, former podcast.
I'm Alexander Julian. See you later, Big Grits.
My mom, my daughters, and I were all draped in Carolina blue wraps. All was done to honor my dad, a lifelong... This one's getting me, Adam! A lifelong alumnus and fan. Of course, there were a lot of warm greetings from people reuniting after a long time, but there was also another hot topic that was prevalent among the guests. That was a heck of a basketball game the night before, or as Jim Nantz would say, a heck of a basketball game. We were enjoying ourselves so much that we hated to break up the party and head to the sanctuary. But as God would have it, and as Dad would approve, the joyous celebration of his life and his Heels continued into the sanctuary and service. The first gentleman that spoke flew in alone that morning from Myrtle Beach, arriving at the hotel by 8. Pretty good for a 90-year-old man. But then again, he too is a Tar Heel. He and Dad had met at Carolina as students, told stories of being in Chapel Hill during Choo Choo Justice's time and Lenny Rosenbluth watching them play poker in Connor. The next gentleman to speak was the one who suggested my parents date during their days in Charlotte. Like a true Tar Heel, he knew to refer to my dad's birthplace as Winston, not Winston-Salem. And at one point, he even started the statement, "If God wasn't," and my mom from the front pew stood up and finished, "a Tar Heel, then why is the sky Carolina blue?" I'm sure State and Duke fans in attendance politely rolled their eyes at that one, letting this go just once to honor a great man, my dad. We rushed home the next day so we could be in Winston, Mom and Carrie and our oldest daughter in Chapel Hill in time for the St. Peter's tip-off. Thankfully, after an emotional weekend, that game was not quite as stressful. We all know what happened next. We spent an anxiety-ridden but also giddy-infused week of anticipating the historic meeting of Carolina and Duke in the Final Four. The praying I did that week and during the game meant my butt was definitely in church on Sunday, April 3rd, after only 3 hours of solid sleep. Adam, per usual, perfectly described my emotions that night. As the clock expired, as I said earlier, I burst into tears out of relief and joy and to release so much yuck that had transpired over the last year. Within minutes of the game ending, and after I was composed, the landline, oh boy, Adam, at our house rang. It was my dad's 90-year-old Carolina classmate and best friend calling to talk to me about the game for the very first time. You see, he had always had that phone call with my dad before.
Oh, boy.
Why are you guys doing this to us?
Whoa. Okay. What about those Brady Manic beards?
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Okay. This one comes from Michael Martine. Michael's story starts like this. I joined a few friends at the Smith Center for the UNC Duke and National Championship games as part of my hashtag Go Where You Go routine. My hashtag Do What You Do includes turning down the sound and listening to the Tar Heel Sports Network for the call. My ancient Sony Walkman, and Michael sent us a picture, could not pull up the FM version, but it would give me a relatively clear version of the signal from 1360 AM, as long as I held the radio just so in the air with my left hand. Due to the television broadcast delay, the radio was 24 seconds ahead of the video action, which meant I had a clairvoyant understanding of the future, courtesy of the Tar Heel Sports Network. I would tap my friend Amy's shoulder when a free throw would go in. I'd let her know what player to watch when a terrific play was developing. She was very appreciative for this advanced insight. At the very end of the game, while everyone in the Smith Center held their collective breath, I knew the game was over and that the Heels had won before anyone else. I couldn't contain myself. I was jumping and yelling for the team to just let the emotion out, and 24 seconds later, the rest of the stadium was jumping with me. Short one, but I love it. I love how Michael had been cool about it the whole game, but couldn't handle it at the end.
I also like how he thinks that Amy was very appreciative. And in reality, I think Amy went home and was like, yeah, he kept telling me what was going to happen.
Okay, just a handful left. We have I think we have four left. And again, we got a lot more than these.
Yeah, we're barely scratching the surface.
It feels like it's a good opportunity for us to take a break, get a breather, adjust the volume, because here comes an ad. Okay, this one's from Drew Lasky. Drew's story starts like this. While many people scrambled to make Final Four plans for the single biggest non-championship game in NCAA tournament history, my schedule for that weekend had long been established. My cousin's wedding was set for April 2nd in Bloomington, Indiana, and she had asked me to be one of her fiance's groomsmen. Like anyone in my position, the second UNC's ticket to the Final Four was punched, I confirmed the time of the ceremony, 4 p.m., which thankfully meant I had plenty of time to fulfill my groomsmen obligations before I needed to fulfill my Tar Heel fan ones. This is the part where I wish I could tell you my graduating class, but I'm not an alumnus. My fandom for the university started with my affinity for Michael Jordan growing up and has snowballed ever since I started following college basketball closely in the early 2000s. For good luck, I brought my Funko Pop Ramses to the wedding with me, obviously.
Funko Pops play a role in
Yeah.
a couple here
Yeah.
coming up.
During the bridal party pictures, I asked my dad to hold on to the Funko Pop Ramses until we were finished.
Dad, can you hold this Funko Pop?
But in a very Brianna-esque move, he set the Ramses figure on a chair, only to have it fall to the floor, breaking his leg off. I tried not to let this serve as a negative omen for the game, but I can't help but think that event had some influence on Armando's leg injury that occurred late in the second half.
Seems logical.
I started watching the game at the table where some of my family had been seated. There were only 2 people there with me as I watched intently. I held back the urge to vomit from nerves and, honestly, the generous alcohol consumption that had occurred the hours prior. Trust me, Drew, that was exactly how Adam was there courtside in the Superdome.
Can I throw in one fun story right here?
Yeah.
So, I was underneath the Superdome stands on Saturday night for reasons which will become clear at a later date. This was after the game. And I was talking to this security guard guy, and he was talking about all the phones that had fallen from the stands. And I said, well, how many phones fell from this section? We were underneath the Carolina section. He said, I got 12. And I said, well, what's a normal amount? And he goes, usually for a Saints game, we get 6 total. There were 12 in this section. I said, wow, that's a lot. He goes, yeah, these people were drinking.
Well, Adam, I'm going to put a pause in Drew's story, and I will explain why Adam was under the stands. So my daughter, who's 13, was at the game, and before the game even started, she dropped her phone. Now, somehow, they found, like, every other phone was recovered, except hers. I don't want to bore you with the detail, but what ended up happening was there were some guys underneath the stands where this group of Carolina fans were that were doing. So I never quite got if it was like a TV person.
I think it was TV.
Or maybe somebody for the video boards or something. But so the phone fell like on top of them. It just happened to be where she was seated. And this person turned in the phone to somebody they weren't supposed to, blah, 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 blah. So the phone was, no one could ever find the phone, even though every other phone got found. So after the game, for like 45 to 60 minutes, I was walking all around the Superdome with these 3 gentlemen, and I don't know their name, but I just want to give them an enormous shout out because they were super helpful, super nice, did everything they could to help me find that phone, take me to guest services, take me all over the place, looking in gross places, as did Adam and Ken Cleary and Gary Pachesney from Carolina and others. It was a full team effort. Somehow, randomly, the phone was in an envelope in an office to which a guy who worked for the NCAA had gone into. And when we kept pinging the phone, which my wife did, 100 times after the game, the dude finally picked it up on a FaceTime call, and we found one another, and we got the phone back. So what a team effort, and a big shout-out, not to just Adam and Ken and Gary and everybody else from Carolina, but the dudes from the Superdome, too, who were great. They were awesome.
If you were thinking old Jones and Adam took a while to get stuff posted after that game.
That's why.
They must be out celebrating on Bourbon Street or beneath the Superdome stands, which is gross under there if you ever need to know.
Okay, let's jump back into Drew's story. If you need a quick update, Drew been drinking a bunch and was at a wedding. At halftime and with UNC trailing, I decided to change my seat selection because it clearly wasn't doing the team any favors. Go where you do. I'm so tired I can't even get it right. Go where you go, do what you do. And in a game of this magnitude, nothing could be overlooked. I decided to sit at my seat at the bridal party table. I figured the luckiest spot in the room must be where love's eternal glory had been blessed into existence earlier in the evening. As the second half went on, and no doubt from my unabashed reactions and commentary, more people from the wedding joined the watch party, which was occurring on my 5.7-inch iPhone screen. When Caleb Love hit what may very well be the biggest shot in his Carolina career, Drew, spoiler, it is. I let out a cheer that quite possibly could have been heard all the way in New Orleans. I knew as soon as that 4-point lead was established, Caleb would effortlessly knock down whatever free throws ensued. And wouldn't you know it, he did exactly that. As the clock ticked down to 0, I used what was left of my voice to let everyone in the room know what had just happened. Carolina had defeated Duke in the Final Four and retired Coach K in the process. No matter what happens Monday night, Drew sent this obviously between the two games, we UNC fans will always have that in our pocket. The table of game watchers that had ballooned to more than 10 were all happy to see Duke lose. They could sense my relief and jubilation as I processed what I had just witnessed. I gave my girlfriend a hug, and as much as I felt like crying into her shoulder, I was too overjoyed and unsober for any tears to exit my eyes. On a Saturday where my cousin and her groom celebrated the happiest day of their lives, little did I know, I would also be celebrating one of the happiest days of mine.
Drew recovered in plenty of time to write a very coherent story.
Alan Huffman, Adam. Alan's story, longtime pod listener, starts like this. First, to set the scene, I live in a house about 100.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
I live in a house about 100 meters. Oh, very classy there. At a dead end on a gravel road off the main road. There's a group of 3 houses hidden by some trees. There's an elderly couple that lives in the house next to me. The house across the street is abandoned. All 3 houses are separated from the rest of the neighborhood and surrounding area. Alan may be a serial killer, Adam. Unclear. Saturday night, I turned the game on against Duke in my living room. Put on my Carolina shirt and my Vince Carter jersey on my dog. Obviously, because that's where we watched and what we wore for the game in Cameron. We watched the first half cheering hard for our Tar Heels and carrying the stress and anxiousness along with it. Halftime hit, and we took out first deep breath since the game started. All of a sudden, Alan could hear what sounded like a helicopter fly by directly over his house. I ignore it. Dean, that's his dog's name, Dean and I continue watching the halftime coverage. Then I see red and blue lights flashing outside my house. I go over, look out the window. There's a police car with its lights driving slowly along the gravel road in front of my home. It pulls into my neighbor's driveway, turns around, drives back to the main road. Well, now my mind starts racing because it just doesn't make sense as to why a police car would drive down this secluded road and then just turn around and leave. But then the second half starts, so I focus back on the game and we start watching again.
Well, enough about that. I hope RJ can take care of the ball this half.
About a minute into the second half, a second police car with its lights on drives slowly by my house. Well, now my mind goes straight from this is weird to there is obviously a serial killer on the loose and that they are looking for, and he is hiding right next to my house.
The call's coming from inside the house, Alan.
That added thought with the already years of life anxiety caused by playing Duke in the Final Four sent me into a bit of a spiral. I quickly had to make a decision of what to do. My first thought was I can just drive over to my parents' house and watch the game there. But then the realization settled in that I had watched every game since the game in Cameron in this room. I couldn't dare leave and tempt fate. So Dean and I decided that if we were going to go down, we were taking Coach K with us. We lowered all the blinds down, made sure the doors were locked, turned off all the lights, and watched the rest of the game on my phone on the floor next to the couch. My dog Dean just turned 5 months, so he's normally pretty rambunctious. but he understood the assignment. He sat quietly in my lap and watched the game. We celebrated in silence as Brady gave Duke a little bang-bang trash talk. Leakey continued to lock down A.J. Griffin, and R.J. ran the point like a general. Baycott fought through the ankle injury to finish off the game. Puff hit his 2 big free throws, and Caleb hit a dagger of a 3 to send Duke home. Once the game was over, Dean and I hopped into the car and drove over to my mom's house where we rewatched the game, this time able to celebrate at full volume. The next day, I did some investigating. Turns out the helicopter was a planned military training. Never did find out the reasoning for the police cars, but it seems my imagination had just run a little overboard. Dude, I mean, Alan had like a life choice to make.
In Alan's mind, it was totally rational. Like, well, guys, this could be a serious criminal or possibly a murderer. On the other hand, the Tar Heels lost if I didn't watch the game here. We're sticking it out, Dean.
Dean, close the blinds, get the phone, turn off the lights.
Yeah, I mean, clearly this criminal was not one of your smarter criminals. Well, the blinds are pulled. I'm not going to go in there. Surely Dean and Alan aren't in there. I'm just going to keep walking. Let me go over to this abandoned house.
Woo. Okay, last one. Quick reminder, by the way, that we're brought to you by Pinehurst. There's more to the Pinehurst Resort than Donald Ross's masterpiece, Pinehurst No. 2. There's Gil Hance's stunning redesign of Pinehurst No. 4. You can grab a couple wedges and take the loop at the Cradle, fun short course. Unwind at the Pinehurst Brewing Company for craft beers and classic North Carolina barbecue. Just down the hill from the fully renovated Manor Inn. There's never been a better time at the cradle of American golf than right now. Pinehurst.com to plan your visit. Adam, we're going to end today's story journeys with Hunter Oakley.
Buckle up, folks. This one's a ride.
I mean, I got to tell you, we took a lot out of this story. It is like a fever dream.
In the movie version, all of the stuff we took out will be in there.
Our final story for today. And again, if we didn't read your story, it's not because we didn't like it. We've just had a lot, and we will drop in more stories through the next couple of shows.
Gonna go out on a limb and say I'm probably gonna have to read all the future ones.
Hunter's story, titled Shirtless Photobomb. That's the day that my son and I bonded over the Tar Heels. That's the day that the 90-year-old called me instead of my deceased father. Finishing up with Shirtless Photobomb. And Hunter's story starts like this. March 28th, the Monday after we clinched the Final Four berth after beating St. Peter's. I was at my friend's house. We sat down, and I whispered, "How are we getting to New Orleans?" as his wife was close by.
Hunter, you slide dog.
Hey, Stephanie, would you mind going over into the next room for just a second? Clark and I got some stuff to talk about. No big deal. Just Buddy Hunter's here.
What's the first line of his email?
I am Hunter Oakley, and I am probably the most annoying UNC fan of all time. I kept that part out. Okay, so Sly Hunter is chatting up his friend. How are we getting to New Orleans? His wife was close by. Didn't know if we could actually pull it off. We began to look flights, hotels, prices for tickets, logistics. The plan was formed. With hotel prices being through the roof, we decided, obviously, that we would decide to drive a town and country van with more than 200,000 miles on it, the hood ajar, the light always on, no cruise control, and also they would sleep in the back of this van at night. 13 hours of driving and sleeping in the van. The plan was set. We departed at noon on Thursday, hoping to get near Biloxi or Gulfsport and get a hotel so we could at least get one night of sleep in a bed. But that turned out to be wishful thinking, as we got to Atlanta and hit some of the worst traffic ever. We were rerouted to go through Tuscaloosa instead. Well, no surprise there that Atlanta has the worst traffic of all time.
We've covered that.
Not really realizing that changed the plan till an hour in, we stopped at a place called Buc-ee's, which is the world's largest gas station. I walked inside to buy a hoodie, with which I thought was a squirrel mascot on it, but was corrected as if insulted that it was a beaver and not a squirrel by the lady working at the register.
Okay, do you understand that part of the story?
Not at all.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
There, I bought a brisket sandwich and banana pudding. It was better than anything you could imagine from a gas station.
Brisket sandwich, banana pudding, beaver hoodie. We're good.
Sleeping in a van. We then go a bit further to Alabama. We see Bryant-Denny Stadium, since you never know when you'll be that close. Goofed around a bit, and after 30 minutes, hopped back in the van to go a few more hours to find a hotel. With the time zone change, it was 11 p.m. Not sure.
So now he does know about the time zone change.
And we started looking for hotels near the Mississippi border of Louisiana. What Hunter and his friend did not know was that the night before, a big storm had knocked out the power for a lot of the area. So electrical/power workers were staying at hotels coming from out of town to help restore the power. So not one of the hotels for 40 miles had an opening. They were left at them with just one option. That was to sleep in the van at a Welcome to Louisiana rest stop. So we prepped for the night and got ready for bed. Hunter's not going to lie to us, Adam. It was a rough night. He didn't get much sleep. No matter what way you balled up pillows or blankets, you just couldn't get comfortable sleeping on a van floor. We awoke at 7:30 to trucks honking and the sun shining and decided to head on to New Orleans for the day, take in some of the sights. The thing we did not think of was how we would shower. But then Hunter remembered that as a member of Planet Fitness, you could just shower there. So they found a Planet Fitness and showered before heading into the Big Easy. Let me just say, I mean, the amount of people that Hunter runs into per Hunter is amazing. And again, we had to cut some of this out. But it's Bill Walton, Bruce Pearl, Bob Huggins, Scott Drew, Mike Young, Jason Capel, Kenny Smith, the Affleck Duck, Dominique Wilkins, Joel Berry, Scott Williams, Melvin Scott, Wes Miller, Bobby Fraser, Cameron Johnson, Roy Cooper, Al Wood, Leaky Black's mom, Tyler Hansbrough. It's a wild ride. Now, the reason you're saying, why would you cut some of that out? It's kind of like that Saturday Night Live skit where Chris Farley's there and he's talking to Paul McCartney and he's like, "Hey, you remember when you were in the Beatles? That was awesome." That's kind of like what that part of the story is, and it is awesome. But Hunter's basically just saying, then I ran into Cam Johnson. It was awesome. Then I ran into Dominique Wilkins. It was awesome.
And then just matter-of-factly goes into, well, then I met the Affleck Duck. And then I saw Tyler Hansbrough. And Hunter sent pictures of all
Oh, yeah.
this.
Hunter, by the way, if you're listening, you need to you sent us like a Google Drive that needs a password. We need the actual pictures.
I don't have access to your hard drive, which I am thankful for.
So, Hunter, we'd love to see the pictures. And we're going to have a bunch of pictures for the video pod next week. Everybody has sent us pictures. So, Hunter, we need the pictures, but we don't have access to your Google Drive.
Send them as an attachment, please.
Fast forward a bit. A friend of ours back in Chapel Hill heard of us sleeping in the van and found us a hotel for $200 through his points and hooked us up at a Residence Inn 8 minutes from the Superdome. When I tell you I was so happy to have an actual bed, I could have cried. Before falling asleep, I turned on the TV, and what was playing? Roadhouse. Therefore, I knew I had to at least finish the movie before bed. Okay, now it's game day. Hunter goes to Bourbon Street. You can imagine. The game begins, and I'm stressing like everyone else. At the under 8 timeout, I get a text from my other friend, Hunter. Now, this is Hunter has a friend named Hunter, saying that
I bet those boys have some hijinks.
Saying that another friend of second Hunter's, who first Hunter met at the Notre Dame football game, named Rob, had a flight from Miami, but it was canceled, so he was on the tarmac, and his ticket to Carolina Duke was not going to be used. So Hunter 1 jokingly says to Hunter 2, tell him to send it to me. I'll move down, LOL. Obviously, this is just an LOL. I'm joking, but I'm super serious about this also situation. Hunter 1 forgot about it. And then at the 30-second mark, I look at my phone and see a text from Rob for my email to accept the ticket. I'm freaking out. All I know is that it's section 112, row 12, seat 15. Seems like you know a lot, actually, Hunter. So I tell my friend Aaron, Aaron's the one who's on this wild ride with Hunter, that we are going to go down and both of us are going to squeeze into this one seat.
See, now that never would have occurred to me. Would you have thought of that? We're going to both sit in this one seat?
Well, Aaron says, heck no, that won't work. And then, per Hunter, begins to be a buzzkill. Thanks for being so lame, Aaron.
I don't think Aaron's been hanging with Hunter long enough to understand how these things unfold.
I am not going to leave him, says Hunter. So I decide to do something I am not proud of. And I lied. And I said that Rob sent me 2 tickets. Hunter knew that this was for Aaron's good. There's a random encounter with Jamie Foxx, but we're going to skip that.
Did the Funko Pops already get signed?
Yeah, Dominique Williams signed a Funko Pop at one point as well.
Okay.
That's something that Hunter got into during quarantine. The second half was so stressful, traumatic, and amazing. I don't know how else to describe it. Let's fast forward to the Caleb Love shot. I lose my mind, says Hunter. I blacked out. That's why Hunter blacked out. It was a blur. I just hate Coach K so much, says Hunter. And after the Love free throws and Duke miss, we knew we won. What else is there to do but rip off my shirt, jump up on the chairs, and lose my mind? Petey Pablo said it best. Take your shirt off and wave it round your head like a helicopter. And that, my friends, is exactly what Hunter did. Like Adam said, the next 30 minutes was as if I was on drugs. I wish I could bottle up the feeling on that concourse, seeing old people, young people, people of all races. It didn't matter what you look like. If you had on Carolina blue, you were hugging and dancing. It was pure joy in that building. I walked up and around to the UNC side, hugging and screaming, "Go Heels!" at anyone who looked my way. On the way to Bourbon Street, I started getting hundreds of texts. Is this you behind Coach K? Yo, did you take your shirt off? I opened up a Bleacher Report video to see Coach K's final seconds walking to shake Hubert's hands, and there I was, shirtless, behind him. 46 years of coaching, years of making me miserable, and the longest going away party had ended with me losing my mind, shirtless, behind Coach K. It truly was the greatest night ever.
I feel like only people that don't know Hunter that well would have to text him and say, "Did you take your shirt off?" Like, anyone who knows Hunter would have immediately known that, in fact, is most definitely Hunter.
I'm spent, guys. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Again, we've got some other good ones. Al Hood sent us a great one of a Baylor watch party. There's a great one of taking babies down to Franklin Street to celebrate. We will get to them. Adam, what a nice little swath of all of it. Serious, fun, silly, dumb, all of it. It was great.
I think that's why we all like it so much, because it touches all those things, and this one definitely did.
Okay, quick reminder. Spring game, Saturday, 3 o'clock. In Keenan is presented by Wegmans. Enjoy the Wegmans meals you love. It's easier than ever with Wegmans meals to go. Order pizza, subs, sushi. I want some sushi. I know you don't like sushi. I think I'm going to get some sushi soon.
I have it on high authority that the sushi at Wegmans is good. That's what my family says.
Catering, more for curbside carryout or delivery on the Meals to Go app. So Wegmans spring game coming up, 3 o'clock on Saturday. We'll talk about that some next week. We'll have some more of your stories and who else or who knows what else. We also have a couple interviews that we have that have been built up that we're going to get to as well. Just felt like here in our final kind of recap of what's been going on that this was the right way to handle it, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Adam, do you have anything else?
I was a little concerned about how this was going to turn out, but I got to say it turned out really well. As is often the case when I don't do much and you do a lot.
Who should we have send us out here, Adam? You know what? What do you think about having the governor send us out?
Yeah, that'd be good.
He was in Hunter's story, one of the lost moments of Hunter's story.
As were most people.
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Let's do the governor.
That's good.
Roy Cooper.
How proud must he be right now?
So we're going to let the governor of the state of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, and the RZA get us out of here on the latest edition of the Carolina Insider.
Hi, everybody. I'm North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. See you later, big grits.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
Pound box of sugar and a stick of margarine. A hot pot of grits kept my family from starving. Steamy hot meal served less than 5 minutes. Big silver pot, boiling water, salt in it. House full of brothers and sisters, the pot's missing. Pilgrim on the box, on the stove in the kitchen.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
See you later, big green.
The preceding has been a Learfield presentation of the Tar Heel Sports Network.